Welcome to twoquestions.tv. My guest today is Mark Stevenson, and we're talking about doing things differently.
Okay.
Welcome to twoquestions.tv. I'm Susan Baroncini-Moe. Joining me today is reluctant futurologist Mark Stevenson. He's one of the world's most respected thinkers on technology, society, and innovation. He is also the author of this book, We Do Things Differently: The Outsiders Rebooting Our World. And it's a wonderful book of stories about people who are reinventing complete industries and thinking about things in a whole new way. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I am excited to have you here. Fascinating book. Actually, the book had me from the beginning because a friend of mine has ALS, and we just, all of us have this ongoing campaign to encourage people to donate to ALS TDI.
Yeah.
And I never knew the story behind it. So that was super interesting.
Yeah, well, that's an amazing story.
Yeah. And I don't know that I necessarily felt super encouraged, but I'm glad the work is being done, at least, and that people know where we are in that. So it's the book is really about how to look at systems from the outside and see what's missing or what's wrong or what's not working right and do things differently. And I wonder, how do you think leaders who are on the inside can encourage their teams to do that? Assuming they're willing.
Welcome to my life's work. So the problem that, one of the things that came out of the book was that if you want to change a system, this isn't always the case, but if you want to change a system and be successful, you have to have several things in place. It didn't happen for all the stories, but some of them were, it was usually ground up, bottom up. It came from the people on the shop floor or the ground floor or out in the community rather than from top down, usually catalyzed by a new technology or a new way of thinking or a new philosophy that they hadn't had access to before, which gave them the power to do something new. Usually in the service of a different social contract than the one they've been laboring under. So it's not about shareholder value. It's about, can we make the world a better place generally?
Right.
And finally, which is the most difficult point to your question, usually catalyzed by somebody from outside the system. Because as Jamie Hayward, the guy who set up ALS TDI, said, I could see the assumptions people were making because I was outside and where they had become completely acculturated to them. So they can't see what they can't see. And also, there's a great quote I use in a lot of my consultancy work. Well, I call it insultancy work. I'm very rude to most of my clients. Is from Upton Sinclair, the American novelist. And he said this great thing in one of his essays: it's difficult to get somebody to understand something when their salary depends on them not understanding.
Yes.
So you've got a job working for the existing system, doing things a particular way, and particularly if you're in charge of that, then you're the top dog. And coming along and going, well, you're doing that all wrong, you need to change it differently. And by the way, maybe your job doesn't exist if we do this better, or you have to have a different set of skills. That never plays very well.
Yeah.
And often the status quo, of course, is very well funded. So what I do with my clients is, first you have to get them to understand that things have got to change, which they don't always appreciate because they've got their head down. But what I do is I do two things. Is one, I set fire to the platform they're standing on by going, well, look, here comes whatever it is. Whether it's technological disruption or whether it's a gender equality issue, or whether it's climate change or investment problem or an employee engagement problem or whatever that is. It's kind of like, I don't know what you're thinking, but have you not noticed that this thing is on fire? and then they go, oh God, and then you go, yeah, but it's okay because it's all fixable. There's this thing over here that you can do, and then you show them examples of people doing that. But you're not going to get over there by thinking the way you are. So now you have to think differently. So once you've got that emotional buy-in, and I have an artistic practice I keep up, which is stand-up and theatre and music, because I'm always about how do you move the heart. Once you've got someone to emotionally buy in, then they're in a position to start thinking about how they change themselves and their culture to address the challenge. But what most people do is they can't try and convince the head first. It's never going to work.
Yeah.
And no, for a fact, the head does the PR for what the heart has already decided. You need all the facts and the cognitive stuff and the skepticism afterwards, but unless you get somebody to move their heart, they will hardly move their feet at all. So first and foremost, you've got to get people to feel it, really feel it viscerally. That is the school. That's the skills of artists for me. That's why it's why I write theatre. It's why I do stand up. It's getting people to feel stuff. And then once they've felt it, then they'll want to change. And if they want to change, then they have to change their culture, because all systems change is about culture. It's not really about technology. People are talking about artificial intelligence at the moment, but as Bill Gates said, you can automate a bad process and it'll just magnify the inefficiency of that process. So it's not artificial intelligence, it's artificial stupidity. Stupidity operates geometric progression rather than arithmetic. So three computers can be 9 times as stupid as one computer. 3 consultants can be 9 times as stupid as and then eventually you get to Deloitte. So
oh, there's a lot of consultants there. The magnitude
you can get from. We have seen this from the big consulting organizations. You look at all their predictions, for instance, on mobile phone penetration, they can start entirely wrong because they're in a particularly fixed mindset. So what is the culture of innovation? And my definition is innovation is the culture of asking the right question. And when you've got people to ask the right question, then they have the tools and the talents to find the answer themselves. But if they're answering the wrong question, then they'll go and answer that question and find themselves irrelevant. My favorite example of the stupidest question that nobody asked that's been answered recently is something called the Kerastase hair coach. It's a Wi-Fi enabled hairbrush with a humidity sensor in it and a microphone that analyzes your brushing style and takes into account the local weather and gives you a hair manageability score via your smartphone app, right? Now, nobody wants this product, right? This is it has no utility at all.
This product.
I don't know how much it costs. But anyway, but really the world doesn't need it. We have climate change, we have democracy in retreat. We do not need a Wi-Fi enabled hair. But yeah, millions of people's, millions of dollars and probably lots of people's careers went into thinking about that. And this is one of the reasons we have such low levels of employee engagement. Like 87% of people don't like their jobs. And it's because they realize they're working for a system that's not dealing with the world's grand challenges. Most of the money is going to somebody else, and it's getting more expensive, for them to have healthcare or educate their kids or whatever. So we all know this has all got to shift. So once you're asking the right question, there are all sorts of tools to help you answer that question. And the other thing I believe is that people divided by politics very soon brought together around projects. And once they're asking the right question, they've got something to build. Things can move really fast.
I often think that that entrepreneurs try to retrofit the way that they look at people who are very successful, and they try to sort of reverse engineer. And so they look at a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs, and they go, well, what did he do? He wore turtlenecks all the time. Okay, I'm going to do that. And he thought about things this way. But at the same time, often these super successful, world-changing people don't start out that way. They just start out by asking different questions. I recently read a biography of Leo Fender of Fender Guitars. And this was a guy who was an engineer, and he genuinely was just at a party one night and trying to do his part to help these war effort parties. And he just asked the question, like, what am I going to do with these poor guitar guys? They want to play the music for these people. And my contribution is to light up the event. And, I can't go to war, so I'm going to do this. This is my little contribution. And he started trying to figure out how to help them be heard. And that's how the guitar was started, like electric. So I think sometimes, what starts as a very simple question grows into a lifelong mission. And that's not, I think music makes the world go round. I think it's pretty important, but it's not, global war, climate change affecting. But still, I think we look at the wrong things so often. So do you have advice for entrepreneurs who are thinking about, how can I be disruptive? How can I be different? How can I change things? I'm just one person, what can I do?
Well, the first thing, it comes back to that emotion again. There are people who say they want to be entrepreneurs, and what they're really saying is, I want to be rich.
Yes.
And that's dumb. That's dumb. I view entrepreneurship in the widest sense, which is, are you going to change something? Are you going to make something better?
Yeah.
So if your only the vision is to slightly tweak the product and, read all the company manuals and, make yourself $1 million, then literally get out of my face, because you're dull. And I have no time for you, and you'll be unhappy. You know,
Yeah.
you'll trade in your relationship with your family and your friends for this stupid idea. But the
Yeah.
first thing is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, what are you going to be an entrepreneur for? You've got to be asking yourself a question. So Jamie Hayward, you know, how can I reduce, you know, how can I improve the outcome for patients? How can we use patient data to supplement the data that the physicians
Yeah.
have, so they work together in a better way? And he ends up reducing hospital admissions, creating something that's more powerful than any drug ever created. And initially, he was guided by the desire to save his brother. You know, so he had a real calling. Same Samir Brahmachari in the book. You know, he's a scientist. He's got 4,000 people a day dying from drug-resistant tuberculosis. No new drugs for tuberculosis because apparently it's disease of the poor. We don't make drugs for diseases of the poor. So he comes up with a radically cheaper way of coming up with drugs. You know, so he's got this calling. Carl Jarvis, the guy who walks into pretty much the worst school in the UK and goes, "Okay, I'm a teacher. These kids deserve an education. I don't care if they've had 14 head teachers in the last 6 years. I'm going to turn this school into the best school in the country." So he, you know, an ex-business guy who became a head teacher. So you've got to have that calling. Once you've got that, then you're already on the road to winning. So, but one of the things that I find that happens to a lot of people is they get so far, every new idea is hated, right? Or it's going to be resisted because the status quo is very well funded. And what happens with a lot of people I mentor when I'm working with young businesses or employees or whatever, is you've got this new idea. And you go, fantastic, I've got this new idea, I've got this new thing, it's going to change the world. I'm so up for it, right? So you walk into a room of people you've got to convince. This might be 10 investors, 10 people on the board of directors, 10 colleagues or whatever, you know. And you go, hey guys, I've got this wonderful new idea. And they go, well, really? Oh no, I'm not interested. By the way, I'm busy. By the way, it's not your job to think about that. We employ you to do that thing over there, so you should just do that. Yeah. And there's a reason we do it the way we do it. So can you just, shut up. And you're sitting there and you think, wow, that's tough. And but one person out of that 10 came around, and this is the mad person, right? This is the person you go drinking with. So they were going to come down. You're now sat in the bar with this second person, and they're going, I don't understand why they didn't go for it. And then you realize why. You have this revelation. You go, I know why. I didn't sell it well enough. Yeah, it's my fault. I didn't have the chops, the elevator pitch, whatever it was to capture their imagination. That's not a problem. I can fix that. I just got to work on my pitch. Okay, so what you do, you go back into that room. There's now 9 people who don't want to listen to you. You do a new pitch, and they all go, so no, we heard you the first time. One more person comes around. Now you're sat in the bar with 2 people. You still think it's a presentational issue. You still think, I've just got to light that fire in their belly. Blah, blah, blah. And you go and you realize what you really need to do is move from PowerPoint to Keynote and change the font.
That'll change everything.
And you walk in, and out of the 8 people left, 7 of them totally get lost. So now you have 3 people on your side. This is where everybody gives up. This is where everybody gives up all the time. I used to give up here all the time because by now you've been pushing your new idea, your business, whatever, blah, blah, for maybe a year, 18 months, 2 years. 70% of the people that you like and trust, 70% of your potential markets, 70% of your friends, 70% of your family are telling you it's not working. And you're thinking, I'm running out of cash. I'm running out of motivation. And actually, if all these people that I like and trust are telling me, you know, from my professional group, from my industry, that it's not working, then maybe they're right. And I can drop this idea with a clear conscience because I gave it my best shot, and that's okay. And I've got to do something else because clearly this isn't working. Right? That is when that's what I say to my clients. That's not the time to give up.
Right.
That is just a score, and all it says is round 3.
Yes.
And you have to keep going to round 5,
if not more.
And well, when you get to round 5, you're winning more often than you're losing, and things start to move very quickly. But you have to get yourself to round 5. And so here's the thing I said to them: this is the thing you have to understand. You have to be prepared to lose more often than you win until halfway through the game. Otherwise, you will achieve nothing. Yeah. And when you apply that rule, guess what? You keep going. And you know, the other thing I say is when my clients are sitting there going, I'm at the absolute end of my tether, the money is running out, it's all going very hard, I don't know what to do, I'm thinking of quitting this thing. I go, guess what? That's when all your competitors are quitting. This is where the field thins. This is what makes you an entrepreneur, not the dream of the money, but it's how you handle getting nowhere or getting somewhere very, very, very slowly.
Yes.
That's one of the things I do. But the other thing that I think all entrepreneurs should do, and everybody should do, is smash themselves into as many new ideas as possible. It's very easy to get stuck in a particular rut or a particular culture. I mean, you know, Silicon Valley has all sorts of problems with its culture. There's an entrepreneurial startup culture, which is pretty toxic as well.
Yeah.
You've got to get out there and see as many new ideas as possible. So, I mean, Steve Jobs said, creative people feel guilty because they didn't really do anything. And what he means is that they spent so long wandering around the world looking at all sorts of different things that eventually idea A and idea B were natural together because they'd seen idea A and idea B, whereas most people, I say, gone into the same rooms, spoke to the same 10 people about the same 10 problems for 10 years. And guess what? They're not very creative. So.
Absolutely. Get outside your industry, get outside your world, look at all different things.
And that's what happened. I mean, in the book, it's all about people who were kind of forced by necessity, by disaster or tragedy or just a huge need to be an outsider. And when you are the outsider, you can see, and you have this kind of authority to kind of question things, which other people inside the system may be scared to do because, you know, that challenge their job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mark, where can people find you?
On the infowebulator. So I'm at Optimist on tour, my Twitter handle, and there's markstevenson.org, which is kind of the website that links off to the books and other bits and bobs I'm doing.
Perfect. We'll have those in the show notes for today down below, people. Would you like to join me for the after show?
I would love to.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me on this show. Okay, viewers, if you'd like to join Mark and me, we're going over to twoquestions.tv. That's where you'll find the after show. It's the only place. You can't find it anywhere else. So we're going to go over there. We'll see you over there. In the meantime, here's the book. Wonderfully inspiring book. Definitely make sure you get your copy. We're going to have links to Amazon so you can get your copy down below in the show notes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.